Hai and Assalamualaikum to Madam Nurul Ain binti Abu Qasim. I am lecturer of SPS 554 on exercise rehabilitation. So today I'm going to make a video on several topic that I have learned on the previous class. Okay, so firstly I'm going to talk on the procedure of how we gonna take manual resting heart blood pressure. Okay, so firstly the procedure of first thing first, the equipment that we need to had to perform this manual resting blood pressure is a stethoscope, cuff, which is the inflated cuff, and the balloon that is attached to the cuff. Okay, firstly we had to make sure that the patients are being seated quietly on the chair, and we had to make sure that he is quite comfortable and relaxed so that his blood pressure at his normal level before we measure the blood pressure. Okay, so we had to wait at least 5 minutes so that we clear that his blood pressure at normal level. Okay, the next step is we had to wrap the cuff like the picture. We had to wrap the cuff at his branchial artery slightly above the elbow, and make sure that his hand are quite parallel to the heart level. Okay, then we wrap the cuff around the upper arm at the heart level, and we put the stethoscope under the cuff to hear the sound of the blood pressure in the artery. So once we had set up all this equipment on the patient's arm, then we quickly inflate the cuff until the pressure had reached about 180 to 200 mercury. Okay, so what we had to hear is once we had deflate, or means we had released the air pressure from the cuff. So the first thing first, we have to hear the systolic blood pressure, which is the first point or the first sound of the blood pressure. Okay, the systolic is the top number of the blood pressure, commonly known as the amount of pressure in your arteries during it contracts in the heart. Okay, so the systolic is the first sound that you hear when you had release or deflate the cuff. Okay, then after we had hear the systolic, commonly for the normal is 120. We had to hear, or we had to observe the diastolic number, which is the lower number. Okay, the normal diastolic is commonly for normal people is 80 mercury. Okay, diastolic number is when it measures between when your heart is resting between beat. Okay, so systolic is it measure the force of the blood your heart pump. Okay, and the diastolic is when your heart relax between beat. Okay, after this I'm going to show you one video on how people actually take the or measure the blood pressure of an individual.
So I'm going to pump it up again just so you can see in the camera what's going on. So we have it up to about 200, and then we slowly let some air out. And that's where I heard my first thump, and you can see the dial bouncing up and down. And the last thump I heard was about 64. So I got about 118 over 64, because that's where I heard my first thump, heard more, watched the dial bounce up and down, and about 64, I didn't hear anything anymore.
Okay, so if you want to have an more accurate measurement of blood pressure, you can do it twice. Okay, if you are not satisfied with the first one, or you think you had an error, okay, you can do it twice so that you can make a differences between the both number of the blood pressure. Okay, so that is my explanation on the blood pressure. Okay, next, the second thing that I want to talk about is about contraindication. Okay, contraindication is a condition or a factor that serves as a reason to stop a certain medical treatment or to stop certain exercise of rehabilitation that will cause harm or danger that will cause to the patient. Okay, for example, if a person with angina or heart disease, they are not allowed to perform any high intensity exercise due to their disease. So contraindication is the opposite of indication, which means indication is the reason to perform certain exercise or medical treatment, while contraindication is something that you want to avoid from the patient to perform certain exercise. Alright, so this contraindication are divided into two groups, which is relative contraindication and absolute contraindication. Okay, what is meant by relative and absolute contraindication? Okay, relative is where contraindication for situation in which the patient is higher at risk of complication, but the risk may be overcome with other consideration or after being observed by the medical advisor. The example of relative contraindication is when people had severe hypertension, if they are unstable angina, which means that they had unstable heart problem. Okay, that type of population, they had to being observed first by the medical advisor, or they can look for other consideration, other exercise. Okay, that is relative contraindication. Okay, what is absolute contraindication? Okay, absolute contraindication is which by situation where a treatment in particular procedure inadvisable, means that they are not recommended for some type of operation, which means that the risks may be severe is if they had undergo certain exercise. Okay, which one that allow us to immediately stop any exercise testing? Of course, absolute, because the risks are more higher than the benefit, because someone's uh, disease or maybe heart problem or cardiovascular problem, it was very severe that they cannot do some exercise testing. So uh, absolute is uh, more severe than relative contraindication. Okay, next we are gonna go through all 5 components of exercise testing based on the health related fitness HRF component. Okay, so for the first one, for the first component of HRF, for cardiovascular fitness. So cardiovascular fitness or cardiorespiratory fitness is one of component of heart related fitness, which is important to measure if your heart and your lung can function or work efficiently. Means that whether your heart is strong enough or fit enough to pump blood around your body so that your body can function efficiently. Okay, cardiovascular fitness can exercise can improve your heart capillary, your blood capillary, the size and the thickness of heart muscle. Okay, the exercise testing that if we want to measure someone's cardiovascular fitness is exercise a test such as blip test, okay, 2.4 kilometer, and all cardiovascular exercise that is all exercise or test that we can use to measure someone's cardiovascular fitness, uh, how their heart can pump oxygenated blood, or how efficiently it can work, so that they had enough or sufficient oxygen to uh, to endure themselves for this exercise. Okay, next, the second exercise testing or component is flexibility. Okay, what is flexibility? Flexibility is the ability of our joint to move effectively through certain range of motion. For example, when you are sitting, then you are stretching your your leg, your hamstring or your quadricep. If you are able to touch your toes, that means you have good flexibility. Means that your hamstring uh, can stretch further to touch your toes. Okay, what is the test that you can do to improve your flexibility? Okay, the test is sit and reach test, which can observe your flexibility on your lower back and your hamstring. So sit and reach is an example which you can observe or you can do to improve your flexibility. Okay, next, the next component of heart related fitness is muscular endurance, which is the ability of muscle to perform exercise in a given period of time. Okay, example like 1 minute push up, okay, 30 second plank, or 1 minute squat, which is the duration of time that you can do, how many exercise that you can do in this given period of time. Okay, so this exercise you can do it in the lab or also in the field, which can observe how the ability or the endurance of your muscle. Okay, the fourth head rotor fitness is muscular strength, which is the amount of force our muscle can produce in a single maximal effort. Okay, the example of muscular strength is how many reps your muscle can perform in the gym, or how much weight that you can pick up, how much push up that you can do. Okay, that is the muscular strength. Okay, the muscular strength also determined by the size of your muscle fiber, the the ability of nerve to activate muscle fiber that is related to muscle strength. Okay, this is the definition of muscle strength and the example that I talked before. Okay, the test that we can use to improve muscular strength is we can do in the lab, such as 1 RM test, which is 1 reps maximal on bench press, uh, leg press. Okay, the ability of your muscle to perform 1 RM or 1 reps maximum on the certain weight. Okay, that is the test that we can do in the lab for muscular strength. Okay, so we move on to the last component of heart rate fitness, which is body composition. Okay, body composition is the measurement or observation that we can do to measure the amount of body fat and to measure our composition of our body, which means how many fat are there, how many percent of our bone, our muscle, and our fluid content in our body. Okay, so the test that we can done in the lab is tests such as skin fold measurement, which measure our skin fold that contain fat in our body. Okay, the next body composition test that we can do is body mass index, which is BMI. We will measure our weight, our height, then we will calculate it, and there is a scale that we can observe whether our body is ideal, overweight, or obesity. Okay, so there is 5 component of heart rate fitness, and the tests that we can do either in the lab or in the field. On to the YMCA step test, which is YMCA step test is also a test that used to measure the cardiovascular fitness of an individual. Okay, so the 3 minute self test measure the aerobic or cardiovascular fitness level on how quickly your heart rate can return to normal after exercise. Okay, So what equipment needed for this step test? Okay, stopwatch or clock. Okay, a 12-inch bench, a box or a staircase, whatever with step higher than your feet, that you can step on it and you can step down. Okay, and metronome. Okay, metronome or the beat that you can find either on YouTube or on video. Okay, so the purpose of the exercise or this test is to measure the cardiovascular fitness or cardiorespiratory fitness level of an individual, to check that how quickly that your heart can recover from abnormal heartbeat, which mean that when you have stopped the test, then you sit down, then you had to count your heartbeat. Okay, how fast that your heartbeat can recover to the normal range of the heartbeat. Okay, I will explain to you the procedure of this step test. Okay, so firstly, you arrange the step, or you stand facing the step. Okay, set the metronome to 90 beats per minute, and make sure that you can hear the beat. Okay, when you are ready to start, start the clock or set the clock or alarm to 3 minutes. Okay, and march and step up and down onto the step. Okay, when you have step and up and down until 3 minutes, when the 3 minute had finished, you sit down and you have to count your heartbeat or your pulse at the radial, or at your neck, which have the artery that you can count the heartbeat. Okay, you have to count the heartbeat after the test for 1 minute. So how many beats per minute that your heart beat? What this measure? Okay, this is to measure the cardiovascular endurance, cardiovascular fitness of an individual, to see how quick your heart rate will return to normal after exercise. Okay, then we see the scoring or the norms for rating based on age. Okay, next we move on to neuromuscular control. Okay, what is the definition of muscular control? Neuromuscular control is the ability of brain to control the body during motion, whether it is involuntary or voluntary. Okay, neuromuscular control, it involves the subconscious integration of the sensory information that is processed by the central nervous system (CNS), okay, resulting in control movement through coordinated muscle activity. Okay, the neuromuscular control also result in dynamic joint stability and posture control, that coordinated muscle activity through this neuromuscular control, which means that our posture of our body, our joint stability are all being affected by neuromuscular control. Okay, what happen when the neuromuscular control impaired? or being disrupt in our body. Okay, neuromuscular control impairment can also change our movement patterns and increase risk of musculoskeletal injury. Okay, so when neuromuscular control are not functioning effectively or efficiently, it can also change movement pattern, how uh, how pattern of our walking, when posture of our body, and the joint stability. Okay, if our joint is unstable, then it will cause joint fracture, means that our joint are not in place, so the our joint stability are out, and maybe we can have some trouble walking or running or sitting, or our posture body will become affected here and there. Okay, how can neuromuscular control play an important part in neuromuscular injury? Okay, as I said before, when the neuromuscular control of our body has been disrupted or been impaired, it also change our movement pattern, our body posture, and our joint stability. Okay, so how neuromuscular control play a part in this neuromuscular injury? So when some part of our brain or neuron at our CNS has been disrupted, so it will more and less affect our body posture, our joint stability, our lower extremity, our involuntary and voluntary control towards our body. So when our lower extremities had been affected, our body will undergo some difficulties and some impairment resulting by this neuromuscular injury. So nevertheless, our body also will be affected from the posture and stability of the body. Okay, next we will move on to the open and closed kinetic chain. Okay, what is open and what is closed kinetic chain? Okay, firstly, open kinetic chain is exercises that are performed when the hand or foot is free to move. Okay, I read to you the two definition, then I'll give the example. Okay, while closed kinetic chain is exercises that where hand or foot is fixed in space and cannot move. Okay, so what is the difference between these two? Okay, open kinetic chain, the hand or foot are free and not static on the floor or on the wall, while closed chain, it is static, it is fixed in space and cannot move, immovable. For example, as you can see in the picture, the closed chain holding dumbbell, while the closed chain the hand are static on the chair. Okay, so open kinetic chain, you are using your hand to create force or to create movement, while the closed chain, your hand are static or stationary, but your body or your other section, then foot or hand are creating movement. Okay, so the example of open and closed chain is open. The example exercise is like bicycle or lateral raise for shoulder. Okay, that is where your exercises where your hand are movable and not stationary. While the close chain, like the photo push up, okay, pull up, okay, where your hand are static to the bar, and squat where your feet are immovable or stationary to the floor. Okay, so there is two differences between open and closed kinetic chain. Okay, so I have reached the end of my presentation. Okay, so I hope that you madam can understand what I'm explaining about the task that you have given me on the previous class. Okay, so I think that's all from me. Okay, thank you madam and Assalamualaikum.